Hi there. Welcome to Travel Talk with Sucheta. With me, Sucheta Ravel. This is episode 6. And today we are going to be talking about how you can make friends and find people anywhere in the world. Now, this question came to me by one of you viewers, Tushar Mishra, and you wanted to know how to meet people in India, in the cities that you don't know anyone. So I'll tell you a few stories about my experiences of traveling to 80 plus countries and getting to know people anywhere. The photo that you see on the cover of this video was taken recently in St. Lucia, and I did not know this lady until I got to the island. So it's a really funny story. I was traveling to St. Lucia and I was looking for a rental car, and I contacted a few businesses, some hotels, and St. Lucia Tourism to see if they would sponsor me. And I didn't get any positive responses. So I found a new magazine coming up called Island Effect. And I wrote to the editor of this magazine and I told her that I'm coming to St. Lucia and if there's any way that she could help me set up some tours or hotels or car. And this lady, she was so nice. She just said, "Yeah, sure, you can have my car, and I'll meet you at the airport, and you can drive it off, and for a week, and then return it back to me after that." So when me and my husband landed in St. Lucia Airport, Finola, who had never met before, I didn't know what she looked like, came to the airport, handed me the keys to her car. No paperwork, no insurance, nothing. This is the first time we are ever meeting. And there she was. So we met up for lunch later that week and we talked more about how to collaborate. But here's an example of how a total stranger was so trustworthy and helpful. And you can find that happening all over the world. So, how do you find these people? This was definitely a coincidence. You can say I got lucky. But I do have a strategy of how to find people in new destinations that I am going to. The first thing is looking for who I already know. Obviously, you went to school with a lot of friends who may have moved to other cities or countries. That's the first thing to look at is where are your friends and where are your family members. So I have some family in London, in New Zealand, in India. I have friends in Singapore, in England, in Scotland, in Canada. And then I looked at those places and starting my trips around that. So initially, when I was traveling, I was not doing this as a business. I was just traveling for fun. And I would book my flights based on who I knew where. So at least I would have a free place to stay or a local who can take me around. And even if you don't have friends, you may have colleagues. I know I was planning to go to Germany on one of my trips, and I booked a hotel in Berlin, but I met up with a colleague from work. We didn't work in the same office, but he was a colleague for the same company. And we had met at one of the training sessions in the US, but he was German and living in Berlin. So he was my tour guide and he took me to the best restaurants and the places to see. So it was a great way to find the local attractions and the place through a local. The second way to do it is maybe people you met here who can connect you with someone abroad. So who can connect you to someone is I was speaking at an event earlier this year in Huntsville. And this lady, Olga, who was in my audience, she just loved my books and my presentation. She came to me afterwards and she said, "Hey, have you considered traveling to Moldova, which is where I'm from?" And I said, "Well, I would love to, but I really have no contacts there." If I go, what would I see? And can you connect me to maybe the tourism department so I can find out more? So this lady, Olga, within couple of months, she set up a trip for me to go to Moldova. I booked my own flight, but her brother Andrea came to pick me up at the airport. I stayed at his house, and then her friends, um, few of her friends, took us around every day to wineries, to see monasteries, to see the city. They also set me up with some local tours. So it was just this random coincidence, you can say, or a connection to someone I just met at a conference, actually at a presentation, who arranged for that. Other than that, people connected me so many different ways. I just posted on Facebook that I'm traveling to such and such destination, and I'm looking to meet someone locally. Just in that trip in Moldova, I had posted that, and so many people connected me to their friends in Moldova, who I didn't even know that I knew so many people who had friends in Moldova. So I ended up meeting with them. Even in Poland, after Moldova, where I went to, people connected me to their friends in Warsaw. They invited me over for a party. So things like that really add up. Now, a few years ago, when I had just started my company, Go Eat Give, I was organizing a tour to India, and I was looking for a local tour operator. So I was sharing with my friends in Atlanta that I'm looking for a local tour operator. And one of my really good friends here, Darshan, said, well, my niece actually is friends with a tour operator in New Delhi, and maybe she can help you connect. So I connected with Divya, and helped me organize my trip to India, which I took 10 people on. And since then, we have done multiple trips. But most of all, we've become such good friends that every time I go to India and I travel around the country, she's always with me. You might have seen some photos from our recent trip to Kashmir, where we were this summer, and Kerala, we were there last December. So it's turned like 3 degrees of separation, and it converted into such a great friendship. Also, when I was in Kashmir, I met some amazing people. My driver during the trip was Shafi, and Shafi is on Facebook now, and he sends me messages every day of places in Kashmir and what the weather is like, and the beautiful snow, and the latest news. So we've become such good friends. And not only that, during my time in Kashmir, I wanted to buy a carpet, a pashmina carpet. So he took me to his friend's place, which was a co-op. So not like a very upscale store, but it's a co-op run by locals, where they make carpets. And he told this person that she's my sister and you have to get a discount that you would give to your family. And I bought this beautiful pashmina carpet that was shipped to my house. And it was there at my door before I even got back to the US. So, another great story of how that friendship came about. I was in Manchester 2 summers ago attending a conference, and I randomly met this guy called Lofty, and he was from Morocco. So he was actually attending one of my sessions while I was at the conference, and I told him stories. I told the audience the stories from my trips to Morocco and volunteering there. So he came to me after the session and he gave me a scarf, which was a red scarf, written Morocco on it. And he gave me his card and he said, well, if you ever come back to Morocco, I would love to meet you and host you. And I said, well, let's have coffee later together and talk about it. So we had coffee that afternoon in Manchester. and I told him that I would love to organize a tour to Morocco for my fans and Boy Give members. And behold, a year later, we organized a tour that some people went on this past November, and they had such a great time. They actually stayed at Lofty's house for a night and met his family. His wife showed them how to cook a Moroccan dinner, and his daughter, who is also suffering from some handicap, they were able to be involved in that service project. So it was such a great experience, this whole connection. Another interesting story I'll tell you is in Cuba. So I organize trips to Cuba where people can have a people to people interaction. One of the interactions is actually going to somebody's house for dinner, which is not easy to do. Yeah, there are restaurants inside people's houses that are official, but we wanted to have more like a family dinner. And my friend who lives here in Atlanta, her name is Sadia. She is from the Dominican Republic, and her sisters actually were involved in saving the life of someone who had drifted swimming from Cuba to Dominican Republic. And this person said that, well, he's here now in the US, but his parents, his family is in Cuba. And so through her sister's connection to this guy, we were able to set up a dinner at his family's house in Havana. And here we are, 10 complete strangers who went to his house and had the best Cuban food I have had in my life. And this place was like a two-room house that was falling apart. We sat in the backyard of his place where there was a well that we put a cardboard on, and that was our dinner table. So it was a really fun and very unique experience, and what a connection. I would have never found this family otherwise. Now you can ask me like where I do find these people. Like I told you, a lot of things are very random. It's about talking, putting it out there, putting it on social media that you're traveling to a certain place, asking your friends for connections. When I traveled to Tokyo, I asked my friend here, Kazumi, of if there are any friends of hers who can meet me for a meal or take me out or give me some suggestions. And I never ate alone when I was in Tokyo because her friends were always meeting me, and we would go out to the restaurants or go to their homes and try out authentic Japanese food. But there are ways that you can also find people where you don't know anyone. For example, my first trip to Indonesia, to Bali, I didn't know anyone. I was not working with any tour agency or hotel. This was my first time to Bali, and I organized everything by myself online. Now, went on couch surfing, and I looked for people living in Bali. And I wrote to them, I said, this is my first time coming there. I will be bringing a group who would want to volunteer in the community. Can you recommend any places to volunteer? Or could you join us for a meal and talk to us about yourself and life in Bali? And there was this one guy, Anto, 20 something IT. He was working in an IT job, and he said, I will actually take off for the entire week from work, rent a car, and drive your group around for this volunteer vacation that Goit Give is organizing. And I paid him for just the cost of the rental car and the fuel and some of his meals. He didn't charge me anything for his time. He drove us around. Not only that, he was volunteering with us and taking part in the entire cultural journey that we had for Bali. So, very random on couch surfing. Now, I've used couchsurfing other places as well. I stayed at somebody's house when I was in Seoul, in Korea. I stayed with him for 5 days. When I was in Brazil, I reached out to a number of couch surfers to meet them for just lunch. And that was a great way for me to see the city, um, a lot of different cities in Brazil, because I was traveling by myself and I didn't want to really navigate the streets alone as a single woman. And they would pick me up from the hotel and take me out for a lunch in their neighborhood and bring me back. Another organization I went through was called Servas, and Servas is again a people to people networking, home exchange kind of program. And when I was in Brazil, I stayed with this lady Yara, in outside of Rio for a couple of days. And she was a retired person who just was so excited to meet people. And she would take me around in her little car in a Fiat, and we will explore the city. We will go try different restaurants, or we'll go to the Tijuca forest. And I made such good friends with her that twice later I went to Brazil, and every time I would make sure at least to meet up with her, if not stay with her at least for a day. So it's those friendships, last forever, and somebody you just randomly met for the first time. Now, of course, you have to be comfortable with staying with strangers, eating with strangers, and be open minded about it. Somebody is asking if there have been times where things have not gone the way I wanted it to be. Yeah, there was one time I met a lady in Brazil also, and she invited me for a party. And this was through couch surfing. We just wanted to meet people, and the kind of parties that she was really interested in were not my cup of tea. They were really loud and a lot of drinking. So I just excused myself after some time and I did not meet her again. So things like that do happen, but not really very often. I feel the people who are really interested in meeting strangers are very genuine, and they are open minded and they want to help you. I'll tell you another fun story of Romania that I was in this summer. And in Romania, well, I didn't have a contact there for a tour operator. So I posted on Facebook in one of the groups where you can ask for recommendations of people who are traveling. And I think it was women who travel, something like that. And I said I wanted to go to Romania. Do you know of a tour operator? And this lady, Flavia, she said, I am a tour operator, but I'm not available for the dates you are interested in. So let me recommend you Ramona. And then I contacted Ramona, and Ramona took me for a 1 week trip around Romania. And one of the places we stayed at was a village in Maramuresh, in the northern part of Romania. And it was supposed to be like a really fun village experience. It was actually a house of this local who also had a little bed and breakfast set up there. And the lady of the house, she didn't speak a lot of English, but she was a musician, and all her sisters lived in the same community. So they would just drop by during the day for to say hello, to help out with the garden, or I have some extra strawberries here, have them. And so one of her friends, Elena, had dropped by that evening, and she saw me, and she had never seen an Indian person before. So she was thrilled because in Romania, Indian movies had been very popular in the 70s and 80s, and they knew Raj Kapoor, sorry, and they have heard of Indian actresses. They've seen some movies, but they had never seen an Indian person. So this lady was super excited. She didn't speak any English, but she wanted me to come to her house for a cup of tea. And I was like, sure. So she picked me up later that evening and we drove to her house. And this entire time, she's not speaking any English. I don't speak any Romanian, but we are still using sign language to communicate. and she picked off cherries from her backyard tree and gave them to me. She plucked her nice rose and gave it to me. And then she showed me where she keeps her house keys. And she said, anytime you are in Romania and you need a place to stay, here's where I keep my keys. You can just help yourself and come inside the house. And I was shocked. I'm like, I had just met you, and we don't even communicate, but here she is offering so pleasantly. It was really something. So we are still in touch on Facebook, and hopefully one day I will surprise her in Romania. Well, I've also connected with people on Twitter, people who have been coming to Atlanta, and we are just following each other on Twitter. And they're like, well, we are in town. Would you like to meet up for dinner? I connected with a journalist from LA who works at BBC through that. I've connected with people on LinkedIn. And again, it's more of just finding the mutual location and seeing if you have any common interests. Of course, Facebook, posting on Facebook, I've connected with so many people. I traveled with an organization called Cross Cultural Solutions. They do volunteer vacation programs. And one of the trips I did was to Morocco, which you might have heard me talk about before. And we had about 15 volunteers staying in a house there. And one of the guys, Gary, he still keeps in touch with me about 8, 9 years later. um, he's visited Atlanta, we had dinner, and just a couple of weeks ago he sent me a message that I bought one of your books, and I've been buying your books for all gifts for my nieces, nephews, and grandkids. So that's another surprise of how keeping in touch with these people that you just met once or twice has also helped me in growing my readership and my viewership of this YouTube channel. So if you have any questions, please post it on the chat button on the right or the comment section on the below after you watch this video. But my tip to you is don't be shy. Go and explore. With 8 degrees of separation, we are connected to this entire world. So, whatever platform you use, social media, email, phone call, does not matter. Just pick up, reach out to your friends, your family members, tell them about your travel plans, and go find friends, make new friends. It's so much fun to meet people. It's so much fun to learn from them about their place and their city. And you will have a great experience, a much richer experience when you are meeting locals and seeing the city through their eyes than just being a tourist. So go explore. And then next week, we will talk about press trips and how you can go on them. So if you're ever interested in being a writer, journalist, a videographer, photographer, and get sponsored trips, this is going to be the next chat episode for you. So join me next Wednesday, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube Live. See you then. Bye bye.